A debate in Thailand's House of Representatives whether to censure the government for its crackdown on anti-government protesters and whether the army used excessive force. It underscores the political divide within the country and the disagreement over who is to blame for the violence. Dan Rivers has more, but we do warn you his report does contain disturbing images.
These scenes of violence in Bangkok are being closely focused on this week as politicians on both sides of Thailand's political divide debate what really happened. 88 people died in recent violence. Most were protesters, but 11 were soldiers or policemen, and some were volunteer medics. Some 1,500 were injured, including protesters, civilians, journalists and the military, according to official figures. The government blames a militant hardcore among the red shirt protesters, who they describe as terrorists, for starting the shooting. The Prime Minister is now facing a motion of censure in the Parliament from the opposition, which claims soldiers used excessive force. The opposition wants to use video clips to prove their case that soldiers were shooting indiscriminately at protesters as they ran away from them. The government insists the protesters had an armed militia among them. And they say soldiers only targeted those that were armed, but they've promised an investigation into the killing of unarmed protesters. This video, obtained by CNN, is the clearest evidence so far of the mysterious militia the government blames for the clashes. You can clearly see a pistol on this man's waist. And for the first time, faces of these men can be clearly seen, one wearing military-style fatigues, others in black. The men insist the cameraman leaves, not realising he's videoing the scene. Their faces may hold vital clues as to who is really behind this violence. But the Prime Minister says these rogue elements were not typical of the red shirt movement.
I firmly believe that people who want to engage in violence is only a small minority. I don't believe that people who have joined the red shirts movement would want to support a movement that is violent.
But his admission that most of the red shirts were peaceful raises difficult questions about this incident in a Buddhist temple where hundreds of protesters had taken refuge as the army advanced. Red shirts here say they were shot at from an overhead rail line. These photos, published on a Thai website, show soldiers on a track nearby. The government denies soldiers were there on the day of the shooting, but the website is now blocked in Thailand. 6 people died in the temple, including this woman who'd been tending to the injured, including British journalist Andrew Buncombe.
There were an awful lot of people getting shot much more seriously than me, and I got hit by shrapnel in the
front of the temple, huh?
Out near the souvenir shop. But inside, no, forgive me, inside, 20 yards inside the temple. So fire was coming inside the temple.
The man the government ultimately blames for all of this is Thaksin Shinawatra, the ousted billionaire Prime Minister. He remains in exile, now denying charges of terrorism, with little sign other governments around the world will move to extradite him. The Thai government claims Thaksin was paying militia like these men to foment a civil war. If these men are still at large, more violence remains a distinct possibility in Thailand. Dan Rivers, CNN.